ready for a test. Check, check. Is this projecting?
How about this one? How's this?
One more time.
Hello? Hello, hello? Keep going. Hello? Hi? I won't say anything important until we get this working. Is this in the back? No. Oh. Maybe, yeah. Is that good now? Is that up, up? To how we're moving up. Okay, heads nodding. Good. Everyone good? Thank you. Thank you, Avi. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I'm going to take a breath now. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary. My pronouns are she and her. I am happy to be here. I get to be here. I get to be with you. I get to offer guidance and meditation. I get to offer the Dharma talk this morning. Robert obviously is not here. I spoke with him on my way over, and he asked me to give you a message that he is doing well, he's feeling better, and he's resting. And he'll be back next week. So that's really good news. I'm happy to hear that. And I was here a year ago, and there was like 5 inches of snow on the ground out there, and so I get to come back, and I'm excited to be back here. So I'm going to offer some guided meditation this morning. Is there anyone here for the first time? Oh, wonderful. Welcome. Glad you're here. It's a beautiful place to sit. It's beautiful to be in community with others in meditation. So I'm happy you're here. Is there anyone new to meditation? Couple people couple people new to meditation. You can't do it wrong. You cannot make a mistake. Everyone, I think, should hear that. I should say I came up from. I live in beautiful downtown Burbank, down in the Los Angeles area, and it's nice to come up here where you actually have weather. Although I'm sure you'd like to send some of your weather to LA. So I always like to say when I teach when I offer meditation, that you really can't make a mistake, even though your mind might tell you you're doing it wrong. And I find one of the most important things is to be kind and to be gentle with yourselves. It's such a easy road to go down to being critical and thinking you're not doing it right or you shouldn't or any of those things. It doesn't always happen, but this is not a practice of causing more discomfort. It's a practice of learning to be with your experience, even if it's uncomfortable or unpleasant. That's what it's about. It's not about taking that unpleasantness and then judging or criticizing why you feel the way you feel. So I will, since most of you have done this before, I'm not going to offer a lot of meditation, not a lot of guidance, just a little bit of guidance. And I don't have a clock, so I'll be looking at my watch. So if you're peeking at me, it's not because I'm bored. It's because I'm actually timing this. Any questions before we begin? No? Okay, so I would like to ask one thing, though. I especially in a room with this large, it's so easy to come into a room and even in a room full of people not know anybody, and many of you may know each other, but I would love to just invite you to turn to a person or two next to you and just introduce yourself or say hi.
Robert does this, I ring a gong because they won't come back.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I'm going to hit that big one.
Oh,
It
okay.
really gets their attention. Just let me know when they've had enough.
Thank you, that's a great idea. I wouldn't have just rung this.
Yeah. Once you turn them loose.
I know.
I love this. Your energy.
Yeah. There's some cushions up front here, so you don't have to sit on the floor. You want people who have cushions next to them. You want to just, yeah, great, okay, cool, or pass them back. That'd be great. Thank you. So thank you for saying hi to someone. So now we'll come back in and I'll offer about 35 minutes of meditation. So find a way to sit that will be sustainable for that amount of time. If it's your practice, allow your eyes to close. If it's not your practice, or if you don't feel comfortable, you're welcome to keep your eyes lowered with a soft focus in front of you. And take a few moments to truly arrive, to come back to your bodies. Maybe take a couple of breaths to reconnect, to find your body, to find your breath. Feel yourself supported by the floor, by the cushion, by the chair. And this solid foundation beneath you of the floor, of the earth. Maybe take a few moments to let go of any tightness or holding you're doing, starting in the head, softening around your eyes, soften around your ears, your jaw, your mouth. Relaxing the shoulders. Relaxing the arms, letting the hands rest on your lap or on your legs. Softening the front of your torso, your chest, your belly as much as you can. Checking in with your posture, making sure you're upright, that there's some integrity to your posture, but that you're not rigid. Relaxing the legs, moving down the calves, the ankles, the feet. As much as possible, letting go of anything you're holding on to. Just rest in the present. You might experience the body breathing, and the body breathes on its own. There's the inhalation, the exhalation. It's part of being aware of the body, the physical sensations. There's no need to control the breath. You're simply aware. Breathing in and breathing out. It's another anchor to the present time. The in-breath, the out-breath. The thoughts will continue as you sit. And the invitation is to watch them arise and let them pass. It's easy to be drawn into thinking, into plans, into memories. It will happen. And when you notice you're no longer present, when you have that moment of awareness, gently return. Return to the experience right now. The breathing, the body, whatever's present. You may notice the state of your mind this morning. It may be calm. You may be restless. You may be experiencing one thought over and over again. There may be dullness. It's always helpful to have an awareness of what's happening, the condition of the mind. It's not wrong, it's not right, it's simply what is. It's also helpful or beneficial to notice whether your experiences are pleasant or unpleasant, or neither. There's a tendency to cling to the pleasant and push away the unpleasant. All the sensations are active during the practice. Sounds, smells, tastes, even images behind closed eyes, as well as bodily sensations and thoughts. When you stay present, you're aware of the arising and passing of each of these sensations, whatever's there. Staying with them while they're present and allowing them to pass. And also developing a capacity to be with emotions that arise. Noticing any stories or tendencies that pull you away. And come back. And throughout this, holding your experience with kindness, and softness, letting go of any criticism or judgment. Just recognizing that right now it's like this. It cannot be different from the way it is. How can you turn towards your experience with kindness? Where are you right now? Remembering that there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do. You're simply cultivating an awareness of the present, whatever's arising right here, right now. It sounds easy, but it's not so much. It takes the effort to stay, takes the effort to return. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. Can you stay present with the world that exists right here in this moment? Not tomorrow, not yesterday, but in this breath. What is happening right now? What experience is arising, calling for your attention? Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? Is it neither? Notice if there's any difference in your experience from the beginning of the practice to now. The state of mind has shifted or changed, if there's calm or restlessness. If there's craving or aversion, dullness. What's happening right now? What is this? Where are you right now? And for the last few moments of our sit this morning, I'm going to invite you to move into a gratitude practice. So if you can, bring to mind something or someone you feel grateful for, grateful to. It doesn't have to be grandiose, it can be something quite simple. And if you can think of that person or place or thing, or get a sense of it in your heart center, and really reflect, experience that gratitude. You can put your hand over your heart or your belly if that helps to support that connection, that reflection. And spend the next few moments in gratitude. Thank you all for your practice this morning. And now I'm going to turn this over to Jim. So thank you.
So join me in some mindful movement, if you wish, or just sit and watch the world go by. So let's begin by just raising the arms in front of us, holding the hands across from the heart, and just feel into the space that you're occupying. It's like you're standing like a tree and your bark is extended all the way around. You're filling all this space with awareness, soft, kind awareness. Occupying the space that's yours. And then letting the arms relax for a second. Move the hands away from the body and breathe in. Imagining all this space between the hands filling and then sinking and bringing the hands closer together, opening. So this is dynamic space. It breathes. Awareness fills this whole area and then shrinks, opens in a rhythm, opening to the wider world. The atmosphere provides you with oxygen. Then you release what you don't need, and the carbon dioxide flows out to the rest of the world. We live in this reciprocal exchange system, the breath of life flowing through us, flowing through the atmosphere, flowing through the trees and the vegetation, all one gesture. Then letting the arms float up and releasing. The rhythm of life continues with a different gesture. Filling the space between or beneath the palms and then pressing down towards the earth. Filling the space, dynamic space, releasing, rejoining a larger world. Lifting, opening, greater space. Still dynamic, rhythmic, reciprocal exchanges. Lifting against gravity, opening rib cage, coming back, surrendering to gravity, still working. Gravity continues to operate. And then we'll fill the space above us. Paint a rainbow. Releasing the arms, sinking, crossing the wrists, moving up into the space above and separating clouds. Just feeling the hands moving through space. And then push and pull. We'll reach up with one palm up, the other palm forward, and press, pulling in on one side, pressing on the other. Just feeling the body just spinning on this central axis. Your head doesn't go forward or back, but it just gets gently stretched to one side and back to the other. Surrendering to gravity again. We'll turn the shoulders as much as is comfortable for us. Then reaching across, let one heel come off the floor. Feel the strength in the other leg. Release down, reach across, lifting the heel. Sensations up and down the body, from the soles of our feet to the tips of our fingers. Grateful for the balance and the strength we have and the mobility. We can turn and gaze at the moon. Release the arms, lift, release the breath, renew the breath. Hearing. The floor joins us in our gestures. Pressing across. And then reaching across with one arm, focus on the palm of your hand and let the other palm face the earth. Both hands come across the center into the other side, and we switch. The upper hand is a cloud moving across the sky. The lower hand is the shadow following on the earth below. So there's a certain harmony and order to this universe that we discover. Clouds moving across the sky with shadows tied to them somehow. So we notice that the left hand knows what the right hand's doing. It doesn't always work that way. Okay, let's step out and splash in the sea. A little more dynamic movement. Changes the mood of the body. Changing direction. Step out with the other foot. Change back and follow the waves. Switch again. Turning back with the palms up. Come forward with the palms down. Make a little figure 8 with your wrists. Just stretching the ligaments and the tendons in your arms. Rocking back and stepping to the other side, palms up, palms down. And then coming back to the center, find your balance, relax for a second, just scan the body a little bit to see what are the predominant sensations in this standing form. Then we make a fist and sink, let the dragon rise from the sea. Feel the mood change again. Open the arms, open the wings, go up with the herons and the cranes. And turn the wheel. Change direction. Come back to the center. Find that balance again. Then see what happens when you lift one arm and one knee. The body has this incredible intelligence that automatically starts flowing in an integrated way. Where did it come from? All right. Settling down, we'll just focus again on our connection with the breath of life. Sinking, drawing in, releasing, surrendering. Surrendering to gravity, letting go, new energy in, release. Again. Coming to stillness, tuning into the flow of sensations throughout the body. Where is the attention drawn? What are the predominant sensations? What are the feelings in the body? All right, then bring our hands together in gratitude for another chance to practice. Thank you very much. Maybe I'll see you next Saturday at 10 o'clock for a 4-hour routine with movement and sitting. Welcome to join us.
Thank you.
Here you go, sir.
Let's see, I need to make sure.
Oh.
Ooh, yeah, I may want to do something about
playing about a month and a half ago.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. Okay.
It's better on the right side.
It does. It does. Dave, is this a little better? Can you still hear that static? Is it okay? Oh, the volume is way up. All right. How about now? Better? Better? Testing, testing. Yeah, Jim, could you bring the volume down a little bit? Testing, 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 testing. We okay? Yeah. Better? It's okay, not perfect, but better? Okay. Hi. Happy Sunday, Sangha. My name is Avi. I'm community coordinator here. I'm going to go through the ancient ritual of announcements. I just heard from a friend of mine that I meditate with on the Insight Timer who is in Wales on the other side of the world. She is practicing in the midst of 95-mile-per-hour winds and fires that are somewhere around her. Is it hard to hear me? Let's try. All right. Does this help at all? Testing, 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 testing. Testing, 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 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing. Is that helping? More, go up, more. Go up more, go up more. Go up more, go up more. Testing, 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 due to technical difficulties. What's that? Okay, well, it is on. You can hear it now, and it's actually, I think it's this thing. Can you hear now? Better? Okay, I think it's this doohickey connection thing. All right, let me know if you can't hear me, and we'll adjust. Still hear me okay? Still? Okay. So anyway, so it takes an awful lot to keep this place running, in addition to sound maintenance, which is a volunteer thing, and we can be thankful that we have volunteers who take care of that. We need volunteers for all other kinds of things, myriad things, to keep the doors of this place open, to keep it feeling like a home that we can all feel comfortable in. If you feel called to volunteer, our volunteer co-coordinators, there's Ipsia. Ipsia is over here. She of the raised hand, and then Misty, who I don't believe is here today. But see Ipsia, and she'd be happy to plug you in to be of service to this place, and it's a great way to get to know people and just take refuge in the Sangha. It's a wonderful thing. And also, in addition to volunteering, we have 2 magic containers. One of them is Robert's Dana bowl, which is right over here from when he was a monk. And the other one is that box that is over there by the double doors. They will magically take your money, your checks and cash, and even your plastic up here, and they will transform them into Dharma that we can use to keep this community growing and healthy and reaching other people who want to have this experience. So if you feel called to do that, we would gratefully accept whatever you feel like you can offer us. A few other things to be aware of. We can always use classroom volunteers on Sundays. There is a sign up on the website. It is a good way to invest in the future of the Sangha, because one day those little people will be out meditating here among us. Silently and not making a fuss and just participating. Won't that be something? And also, we don't know exactly when the library is going to be officially open, but it is coming, I promise. So sign up for your library account, because you won't be able to take out books without it. We also have free Buddhist magazines in the living room on the shelf unit over there on the north wall. And if you have library items at home that have been like propping up tables with uneven legs for years, please bring them back so we can bring them all home. We have a transition project where not household items, but clothing and personal items can help the homeless get back on track with their lives. Michael is very generous with his time in terms of taking it over to Transitions Project. It helps an awful lot of people. And there's also a list there if you're not sure about what to bring. And also, we've been sending out a digest every week for the last few months. Gregory and his wife have been doing this, and we've gotten really good response. Just keep clicking on the digest. Show us that you're opening it, that you're responsive to it. That will help us know that the word is getting out. A few other things that are coming up. We have our second Sunday potluck today. People have brought in their top secret recipes for you to enjoy. So even if you have brought nothing other than yourself, go in the back, have some food when the Dharma talk is over. There is a new book at the book circle. We have a Monday night book circle that is not a meditation group. It's a book circle where they read through a book and they discuss it. The current book is Advice Not Given by Mark Epstein. That is starting tomorrow, and they will be open for a couple of weeks to new members because, once they really get into a book, it's kind of hard to have people follow what they're doing. So if you've been wanting to be part of a Buddhist book circle, this is your chance. We have a half-day retreat coming up with, Qigong retreat coming up with Jim. Next week, we have Buddhist movie night, Far From Heaven. We have a mindful hike with Vic, which is going to be cross-country skiing, I understand. A mini Karma Yoga Day that is coming up on the 22nd. It's the gardening edition. We're going to have some volunteers come and help beautify the landscape. Lunch will be provided, and it's a wonderful way to get to know people. If you have a green thumb, please check in with Ipsia. She would be happy to plug you into that. We have a winter 2020 class coming up, Intermediate Skillful Speech with Doyle. He's going to be focusing on nonviolent communication and relationship. Then in March, we've got our first Saturday retreat with Gregory. And then on March 14th, we've got a very special retreat that Robert does only once a year called Remembering Death. It is a retreat that is very close to his heart, and details will be on the website very soon. And as you can see, we have lots of stuff going on, and we would love to have you be a part of it and have you be a part of the growth of this Sangha and be a part of the community. So if you feel like you want to plug in, please contact Ipsy or me, and we can do that for you. The other thing is we also do Dharma consults here. If you have something coming up in your practice or you want a quick on-ramp to a practice, please contact me, and I can set you up with a teacher who can meet with you for half an hour for free, because this is what we do for community. It's wonderful to see you all here. It's a beautiful Sunday. Even though it's gray outside, it's not 95-mile-per-hour winds. So you all have a blessed Sunday, and thank you. You might want to jiggle this. You might want to jiggle that when you put it on. Jiggle that connector and...
I'm jiggling it. Oh, that seems to be better. Hi, everyone. Again, I don't know if all of you were here an hour ago when I introduced myself. My name is Mary, and I'm here from beautiful downtown Burbank, Los Angeles, and it's an honor to be invited to teach here. So thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your generosity, and it's lovely to be in a Dharma community. And so I'm happy I get to be here and hear all the wonderful things that you have going on. And also for those who weren't here, I spoke to Robert this morning, and he wanted to make sure I let you know that he's doing well and he's resting, and he'll be back next week. So, and thank you, Jim. That was lovely. I appreciate it. And I hope this breathing is going to not bother me. I was thinking, I teach a couple of classes a week in Los Angeles, and I was thinking the other day what I wanted to talk about, and I was finishing, I read a book, I finished a book Thursday morning. It was called Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. If you've not heard of it or not read it, I highly recommend it. It's exquisitely written. And it's a letter. Ta-Nehisi Coates is a black man, and he writes a letter to his son what it's like to be a black man in America. And it's beautifully written, and at the end, I don't remember exactly what he said, but what came up for me was the awareness of the fragility of life and how fragile we are, and how oftentimes we don't realize that fragility. And so to remember that is really helpful. And then that led me into a reflection about Kobe Bryant. It's huge in Los Angeles because he was a Laker. But just reflecting on that tragedy, not only the loss of his life, but of his daughter's life and a couple of her friends who were 13 and a couple of their parents. It was really just like that. All these people were impacted. And I facilitate a practice called A Year to Live. Some of you may have heard about it. It's a book written by Stephen Levine, where you spend a year living as though you only have 1 year to live. And so I have that starting in a couple of weeks. And so all these things are on my mind, and it got me thinking about the Buddhist, how Buddhism talks about that, how the reflection of the Buddha. And so what came up for me was the 5 remembrances. And when I was talking to Robert this morning, I told him what I was talking about. I go, you've probably talked about that a lot lately because of his physical, his experiences lately, and the fragility of life and when it's in your face. But that's what I wanted to talk about today. And also, I think it's an important thing to talk about. I was teaching a retreat a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking, actually not in the retreat, but with some of the other teachers, and we were talking about health, and I was saying how grateful I was to really be healthy. I've always been a very healthy person, so I'll probably get hit by a truck. That'll be how I go out. And one of the people said, don't say that. Words are powerful. And I said, I ain't buying that. Because that means if I don't talk about death, I won't die? Is that what that means? So I think, there's a fine line where we think, and that tends to be that in this culture, where don't talk about it, don't talk about it, don't talk about it. Whereas in Buddhist teaching, it's like, talk about it, think about it, reflect on it on a regular basis. And it goes back to the life story of the Buddha, where he was, for those of you, and I love the phrase Bhikkhu Bodhi talks about, he says, the charming story of the Buddha's life, because it's mythology, it's not in the suttas, but there's the story that he was brought up in a well-to-do family, and he was protected by his father. It is annoying me. He was protected by his father from the vicissitudes of life, from anything unpleasant or ugly or nasty. And when he was about 29, he went out with one of his servants, and he came across, on the course of a few nights, what are called the heavenly messengers. And that means that he saw an old man, a sick man, a corpse, and then the 4th messenger was a wise man. And he had never seen in this mythology, in his 29 years, he had never seen anybody old, he had never seen anybody ill, he'd never seen a corpse, which in India is actually unusual. It's less it's very typical for someone growing up in the United States never to have seen a corpse, but in India they're much more common, and in other parts of the world death is seen much more often than it is here. So when he had this awareness, he saw this, and it was like a hit. Okay, thank you. He saw this. It was like a smack in the face, and it's what the word in Pali is samvega, if you're familiar with that. And what that means is is that still okay? It's a Buddhist term which indicates a sense of shock, dismay, and spiritual urgency to reach liberation and escape from the suffering of samsara. It's that shock, dismay, and alienation that comes with realizing the futility and meaningless of life as it's normally lived. You know, and so you want to find a way out of this meaningless cycle of birth and re-death and suffering. And it's a jolt into awareness. And so what these messengers were for the Buddha was this jolt into awareness of, oh, life isn't lived in a bubble. There's aging, there's sickness, there's death, there's all these things that he had never experienced. And he asked his servant, he goes, me too? And his guy said, yeah, you too. Everybody you know, you too. I mean, he should have known something when his mother died. I mean, you know, it's like, but, you know, she was replaced, so maybe he wasn't, but again, charming story. But the fourth messenger was a wise man. The fourth messenger was somebody who indicated the path, that there was a path out of this futility, a path away from this delusional cycle of just being caught up in craving and aversion. This practice is a real dive into the First Noble Truth of suffering and the nature of suffering. So that's the story of the messengers, and from the messengers we get these 5 remembrances which are written about in the sutta. These objects of contemplation. They're to be contemplated by women, men, lay, or ordained. So a lot of the teachings are intended for monastics, but this is intended for everyone: women, men, lay, and ordained. And so some of you know this, but I'll just go over these, the remembrances. I am subject to aging. I have not gone beyond aging. Aging is unavoidable. I am subject to sickness. Sickness is unavoidable. I am subject to death. Death is unavoidable. I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me. I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions, and live dependent on my actions. Whatever I do for good or ill. To that I will fall heir. Whether I move towards ill or goodwill, that will be my destiny. So that's what it's suggested we reflect on every day, and they do this, and monastics do this on a daily basis. It sounds like such a downer, doesn't it? It's like, I'm going to die, I'm going to get old, everything I love will be gone. It's like, that's that like real pessimistic flavor that sometimes people think Buddhism have. It's all about suffering. But that's the paradox. It's when you can come to terms with reality, there's freedom in that. There's liberation in that. There's no longer hiding from that. Because what it says in the sutta, we become intoxicated with chasing these things that are unattainable. And these are great teachings for folks who live in this world. Because if you think about the Western culture, and you think about aging seems to be a choice these days. It does. If you buy the right products, you won't age. You won't have gray hair. You won't have wrinkles. And if you do, it's obviously something you're doing wrong. It's extraordinary. You've heard those messages, right? They're very subliminal a lot of times, and a lot of times they're very loud and clear. But this is what we're conditioned. This is our conditioning. This is absolutely our conditioning. You know, in other cultures, and elders were revered. Not so much here. There's a tremendous amount of ageism. There's a comedian called Sam Pancake, and he did a little rant on social media because he's 51, and he was talking to this young guy, and he said to the young man, and he said, you know, you're either going to be my age or dead. And the guy said to him, I'd much rather be dead than your age. He's like, okay then. But that, you know, it sounds, when you're living in that place of delusion and denial, it seems like it makes sense. I mean, when I was growing up, you didn't trust anyone over 30. No, not at all. And, you know, I remember the first time I grew up in New York City, and I was back there a couple of years ago, and I remember I was on the subway going somewhere, and somebody offered me their seat, and I was mortified. I was like mortified. I was like, what are you trying to tell me? And I'm like, no, I don't even need to hold on. That was my immediate reaction. You know, but that's aging. You know, in fact, we have these markers that we look for that tell us we're not part of the human condition, that we don't experience that. Like I said, I can stand on my head, therefore, I'm not getting old. So what I did, I stood on my head this morning just so I could say, yeah, I still can stand on my head. And actually, I was talking to Robert about this when I was coming over, and he said, yeah, last summer he used to ride his bicycle here from his home, and he'd tell himself, oh, I'm good. I can still ride my bicycle, you know? It's the delusion. And when we see the reality of what's happening, we are a lot of times struck with aversion. I got it, thanks. We are hit with aversion. No, I hear 30-year-olds freak out about young people freaking out about turning 30. It's like that magic number, much worse than 50, it seems. So to recognize that when we start going, oh, but I am also of the nature to age, we stop denying reality. Because when you're denying these things, you're denying reality. And who always wins that fight? Reality always wins. And I always say, not all of us have the luxury of growing older. That's actually a luxury. I have never been afraid of telling my age, but a lot of people are. I mean, it's like, what's the alternative? And the alternative is also inevitable. So it's not like we're demonizing the inevitable, the death, but just saying, reality check, folks. And when we're able to connect with age and say, this is it. This is it. It's really important. So that's why the Buddha says, you know, aging. That's part of the First Noble Truth. What's dukkha? What's suffering? Aging. And our attachment to the youth, this huge culture. So, you know, with all of these things, the invitation is to see your edge in it. You know, some of these are more impactful than others. And this is not something you go, oh yeah, I'm going to get old, and you're done with it. It's something that takes a long time because, you know, as Robert was saying, he's been practicing 47 years, and it's still like holding on. And I've been practicing for a number of years, and I still have that. I think it's just that reptilian brain, you know, holding on. Just the neural pathways going in that denial. It's like, no, I got it. But instead, the Buddha invites us to just go, no, this is actually happening. Can you hold it? Can you be with it with some ease? Perhaps there is sadness. To acknowledge the sadness, acknowledge the grief. The next one is sickness. That's also a moral failing. You know, people think they get sick because it's something they did wrong or didn't do. I was doing my Year to Live group a couple of years ago, and there was a couple in there who were in their mid-70s. I think she was in her mid-70s, he was 80. And during the class, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she was appalled because she exercised and ate right. And I lapsed into unwise speech, and I said, I think it was because you missed that workout in 1978. I grew up in New York. I suffer from sarcasm, so I've spent years working on that. But sometimes it spills out. But that's kind of how anybody in here get that? If I just, then I won't get sick. And, I was thinking about it, and I grew up with a very ill mother. So and I'm very healthy, so I was very judgmental about people who were sick. And if people who stayed home from work because they were sick, I was like, pfft. I really had that sense. Because again, I was not part of the human condition. I did not participate in that humanity. I was separate from. It's that isolation, that separateness, that disconnection. If I deny it, then I'll be okay. If I deny it, then I'll be okay. And the reality is, we all, again, there's the aging and the sickness. Not everybody gets that, Not everybody gets that. Oh, here's my notes. Let me find them. So you find that edge, and find that, what's the fear underneath it? Because a lot of times we're driven by fear. Because it's the great unknown. And I'm not saying that when we reflect on that, it dissipates or makes it go away, but there's an ease. There's an ease to it. A little bit more of an ease to it. Are you coming after him?
Yeah, Robert was saying that the reason that you got that popping is you just need to turn the mic down below your mouth.
Okay. I think the popping stopped. Or is it, except right then? Okay.
That there's this, he also said that this thing, I think. Technical difficulties, folks. I'm going to give it a little test.
Okay. Got it? Got it? Good? Pop, 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 no pop. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So sickness, it's a moral failing, as I said. And now and then what happens is there's a practice is be with the sickness. It's like our practice is be with what is. Can you turn towards reality with kindness and softness and compassion? So instead of going into this place of judgment, I'm sick, they're sick, to be softer, to be kinder, to be more compassionate, to be understanding, going, this is the nature of the human condition. It's the first noble truth. There is sickness. Denial only exacerbates that. It intensifies it. When we deny reality, it intensifies the suffering around it. It's that second arrow, third arrow, fourth arrow, fifth arrow. So just say, right now it's like this. Right now it's like this. It's not different from the way it is. Ajahn Chah, who's that great teacher, that Thai forest master, said everything falls apart in the end. Everything falls apart in the end. I love the thing in there, the broken frame, and it says, it's already broken. We are of this nature. So we're already broken, not broken in the sense that we need to be fixed, but that we're of the nature for this to happen.
One more adjustment.
Try again.
All right. Hello, hello. Ticking away the moments that make up a dull day, fritter and waste the hours in an offhand way. kicking around on a piece of ground in your hometown, waiting for someone or something to show you the way. How's that? Keep talking. Oh, okay. When you're waiting, just quote Pink Floyd. That's all. Okay, thank you. So you can tell Robert's fine. The next reflection is death. And boy, do we deny death. We hide it away. It's coming back more into the world, but we, for many years, kept it hidden. We dress up those people, and it's like, oh, it looks like he's sleeping. The denial of it. And it's much worse. It used to be much worse. I read years ago a book by Ram Dass. It was a collection of essays, and he was talking about when his mother was dying. It was in the 60s, I think. His mother was dying, and they didn't tell her. She was in the hospital, and they did not tell her. They said, oh, they didn't want people to know. It was like this weird sense of comfort. Whereas he said, this is ridiculous, and he spoke to her about her dying, and she was so grateful because she knew she was dying. She absolutely knew she was heading to the end, and nobody around her would acknowledge it until he acknowledged it, and she said, thank you so much. To acknowledge we're going to die. Acknowledge that. It's again, the avoidance is so difficult. We have this intellectual understanding of death. Yeah, I'm going to die, but then watching how the mind holds on and holds on and holds on and holds on and holds on. I've been with a number of people at the end of their lives, and I've had the experience with people who've just not been willing to let go, even though their body was already shutting down. They fought. And then I've been with other people who've been like, I just want to tell everybody I love them and go. And I think, and this might be naive on my part, but I think it's really important to begin to incline the mind in that direction. And this is why these reflections are so important, to acknowledge, I am going to die. I am going to be sick. I am going to get old. I am old. I'm going to be 65, and I'm going to get Medicare, so yay. So, I'm really excited about the perks of this aging stuff. So, next month. Anyway, so to acknowledge it, but also recognize that it's a challenging practice. It's a challenging practice, even if we are intellectually there, watching the reaction of the body. But this practice helps so much because we can see the emotion that's arising. We can see the aversion that's arising. We can see the fear that's arising. Rather than getting lost in it, we can see what's happening. Oh my God, there's this fear. Oh, look at that. That's there. There's that judgment coming back again. Because I still go to that place of judgment. I still think I'm immortal. I can still stand on my head, therefore, which is bogus. But when I entertain it, I'm lost in delusion. When I'm willing to put it down, then I'm willing to see reality and go, yeah, this is what it is. I'm especially grateful when I come up here because I stay with my brother. My brother lives up here. He moved up here a few years ago. And he and his wife are not healthy. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's or some kind of neurological deteriorating disease, and he can barely walk now. And he used to walk. He loved walking. It was one of his greatest joys, was walking with the dog every day. And he hasn't been able to do that for years. And he's in a depression. And he's just kind of like, ugh. And he has no practice. He has no way to greet it. And I try and offer, and it's just, it doesn't change the reality of the situation, but the way you relate to the situation is totally different. I went for a walk by the river on Friday when I got here, and I was just feeling this tremendous sadness after spending some time with my brother. And it's not about calling the doctors and finding a cure. It's about saying, this is the journey he is on. And to be able to hold that sadness and go, we're all of the nature. This is going to happen it's unavoidable. Whatever our particular path is, it's unavoidable. Can I greet the feeling, the emotion with kindness and compassion? Which is what I was able to do. I was so grateful that I could feel that and be with that, because I used to run away from it. Absolutely ran away from it. Did not know how to feel. I know my old boss, a guy I worked for, his mom passed away. I was living in LA and his mom was in Connecticut, so he went back to the funeral. And when he came back, I saw him in the hallway. And I ran the other way because I had no words. I didn't even know how to express condolence. I did not know how to be with any of those things. I was so disconnected from feelings and emotions. And this is a practice that says, sit, stay, turn towards. There's no way around. You need to sit and stay and turn towards and know these things are true. First noble truth. Sickness, death, separation from what you love. Having to be with what you don't love. All those things are true. How do you turn towards them? How do you hold them? This is the path to wisdom. You know, there's a line that's out of A Year to Live, the book, which is, I think, really profound, especially when reflecting on death. And he talks about, Stephen Levine had done a workshop with men who were had AIDS and were pretty much close to the end, and he was witnessing their resistance and their deep regrets about their lives, and because they were judging themselves. And he asked the question, how much grief is there when we think on our deathbeds that we don't measure up? Because we have these judgments about ourselves. We have this inability to be at peace with ourselves, this inability to hold the human condition, because we're still lost in the judging, critical mind. And I say these are all questions that we take with us, that some resonate, some don't resonate, some tickle our edges. But I think beginning this journey and beginning these reflections, if you're not already doing it, is so important and so vital. Because it's the root of our experience. It's the absolute root of our experience. And we have to understand these things in order to find a way through and out. Not overcoming, but to be at peace. To let go of the clinging to what we can't have. To let go of the clinging of ideas. You know, and that's the next reflection, is recognizing that everything, we will be separated from everything we love. Anicca, impermanence. You can't hold on to anything. To cling is to suffer. I taught a day long yesterday, and the topic was the joy of letting go. And the Buddha said, you know, the Tathagata discovered that letting go, I don't have the exact quote, but to let go is peace through letting go. That's liberation. So recognizing that I will lose everything I have. I mean, I considered not getting married because I knew my husband would die one day, and I didn't want to have to deal with that. The things we think about, the lengths we go to wall ourselves off from pain, from sadness, from unpleasant experiences. And the running from those experiences is so much more painful than stopping and turning and being with. I know each of you in this room has had an experience you've run from. or worried about, been fearful, oh, what if this happens? And then when it happens, it's not half as bad as you think it's going to be. I'm sure you've each had that experience. Why can't I remember that? Oh, it's not going to be. My fear of experiencing this is much worse than the actual experience of it. So to remember that, and when we sit on the cushion, sit on the chair and say, stop, be with kindness and compassion, and clearly seeing this is the experience, this is the messiness of life. This is who we are as people. We don't get away from it, you know? There's this other list. I love lists. Maybe that's why I like Buddhism. There's this other list of things called the 9 Contemplations of Atisha. Some of you may have heard of that. He wrote about, in the 9th or 10th century. He was a teacher who was in Tibet. And he said, the first contemplation, death is inevitable. No one is exempt. Our lifespan is decreasing continuously. Every breath brings us closer to death. So I really love this one because I get to say things like, the time you have left before you die is less now than when you walked in that door. I'm perverse sometimes. Death will indeed come whether or not we're prepared. It's going to come this is not a dress rehearsal. You don't get to practice and practice and practice and then get it right and then be ready for death. How do you live your life? How do you incline your mind today? Human life expectancy is uncertain. Death can come at any time. There are many causes of death: habits, desires, accidents. The human body is fragile and vulnerable. Our life hangs by a breath. I have cats, a year and a half. They're a year and a half old. They're little brothers, and they're so much fun. And I run around the house, and they chase me around the house. And I have this way that I can just kind of run in circles. Except every once in a while, one of them gets in front of me, and gets in between my feet. And it happened a couple of weeks ago. And he got in front of me, and I went down, and I landed this like in my ribs, and it could have gotten really ugly. Instead, I just ended up with sore ribs and scabs on my elbows and things like that. But those are the things that remind me how fragile life is, how fragile this body is. Really fragile. We're immune to it when we see movies and TV shows. I mean, I just watched John Wick 2 a couple of weeks ago. That guy should have been dead 1,000 times over. But we're lulled into this we're just kind of dulled. Our senses are dulled. That's a hindrance. That's almost like the 5th precept. Thich Nhat Hanh's enlargement of the 5th precept, which is not to take anything that leads to intoxicants that lead to heedlessness. He enlarges on that and says, watch what you take in. Watch what you watch. Watch what you read. Watch what you listen to. Watch what you ingest through all your senses. They can all dull the senses. So watching these movies, listening to this stuff, we can dull the senses to make us think it's not fragile. It is fragile. At the time of death, our material resources are of no use to us. Remember, he who dies with the most toys wins? Not going to happen. Our loved ones can't keep us from death, and our body can't help us at the time of death. Again, I'm sorry to down everybody, but I find a particular freedom in this. There's this ability to, if these things are not going to save me, quote unquote, save me, why do I need to hold on? And it's not just stuff, it's ideas. I got to get the next thing. I got to join the right gym or get the right exercise gear or eat the right foods. It doesn't mean I give up taking care of myself because I want to be healthy. I want to feel good. We do this middle path. The Buddha was, living in the lap of luxury and subsisting on almost no food a day. He said, you know what? 2 ends of the spectrum. Not so good. Let's go to the middle. Let's find the middle path. And middle path is an awareness of what's happening. So to recognize that everything is impermanent, everything passes. And we learn to let go of what doesn't serve. We learn to let go of what we cling to that causes suffering. And we let go not because we're going to be good people, but because it will bring us ease. And then the last one is to, all we have are our actions. You know, and that's the first line of the Dhammapada. Mind follows mind. You know, if we have wholesome thoughts, we're going to go in that direction. If we have unwholesome, unbeneficial thoughts, it'll take us in that direction. It's the second factor of the Eightfold Path, wise intention. Are we living with goodwill and non-harming as our groundwork? Living in a way of letting go of what doesn't serve, practicing renunciation. So we incline the mind to move in a way that's non-harming, that's living in harmony with all beings. And when we do that, our actions will follow. And that will unfold, and our karma will unfold. All we have are our actions. And when we live with integrity, we have ease in our minds and ease in our hearts. And these reflections on these 5 remembrances are really, as I said, a deep dive into the First Noble Truth. You know, dukkha must be known and understood for liberation. We have to see how it arises, see how we're attached to things in order to let go. And all we can do is start where we are. We can't start over there. I think that's a better place to be, so I'm going to start striving to be over there, but really sit with where you are. It's like, you know what? This is scary. Acknowledge that. Or this is good. Acknowledge that. Wherever you are is where you need to be. It's where you can't be other places than where you are. So can you find a comfort in being where you are and move from that place? Move towards a reflection of these things. Move towards a life of non-harming and goodwill and practicing renunciation. That's the invitation. I think these reflections are this way into the understanding the First Noble Truth, because in order, as I said, in order to let go of suffering, we have to truly understand it. We have to truly relate to it. And so that's my invitation. See if I have any other notes. Bhikkhu Bodhi has a line that is good. He says, we often miss the importance of these messengers, aging, sickness, and death, and the wise man, because we're fixated on the more important things like the mundane preoccupations and goals. We put everything else in front of that. You know, what kind of house do we have? What kind of job do we have? How do other people think we sit? Do we have a good posture? Are we impressing everybody? I mean, it can run the gamut. So to watch where you're stuck and be willing to let go of these things that don't serve and move into a place of making friends with your humanity. Huge, huge, huge thing. So those are my thoughts. Do I ask for questions now? Is that how this works? Yeah, okay. I've got some time. I don't know when those little children will be here. It's lovely. But anybody have any questions about this? Any rebuttals? Here's my picture for my flyer. I really like to make people feel good. It's like, hi, you want to pretend you're going to die in a year? So.
I'm just curious, you said that you chase the cats, or the cats chase you sometimes. That one time they tripped you up. Did that make you stop?
Make me stop chasing them?
Yeah.
Or no? I was just sad I hadn't gotten that on video. Anyone else? Okay, go over here.
Hi, I'm an ex-New Yorker too, and I also suffer from sarcasm. Oh, it's a good suffer. I've been doing this now for just about 3 years, and I'm not real good about being regular with my meditation. But it seems like finally, after this much time, it's starting to sink in a little bit. And things are changing a little bit. And I am being plagued lately by this sense that this thing is trying to rip me away from my life force. I've been feeling like Buddhism and life force are oil and water. And I've just been plagued with that, and I was wondering if you could speak to that.
It's interesting that Buddhism is trying to rip you away from your life force. I don't know how you would define life force, so I don't know if I can answer that.
It's the thing that keeps you dog paddling when you're afraid you're going to drown.
Okay. What I was going to say, which might fall closer to that, the thing that's going to keep... When we start really getting deeper into this experience, it oftentimes feels like what we've always known is ripped away from us. That losing of the foundation. That's not unusual. It's like, you mean everything I thought was true is not true, so what I thought would keep me from drowning won't really keep me from drowning? That's actually part of this purification process, this disentangling of this conditioning that we've grown up with that says this is how things work and this is what you have to do to get from point A to point B and be happy and successful and all the things that we hold dear. And it's different for each of us. All of us have different stories and different things we hold dear. And what I have found is that these teachings, the Eightfold Path, Four Noble Truths, the practice, I see them as a net, like a trapeze artist has a net to fall into. And when I'm in that place of holy shit, samvega, when what I thought was real wasn't real, what I thought was working wasn't working, to just keep recognizing that that's part of this. And I have faith, this is faith, one of the spiritual faculties, that if I keep doing this, I will land in a place that will give me a different route, provide me with, let's say, a different life force. So now when I'm in this, what do? I often am guided by, is this going to cause harm? Is this wise speech? What's the next right thing? Is this going to take me towards where I want to be or away from where I want to be? Is this doubling down on my clinging, or is this moving towards a letting go? And I like the phrase, wear the world as a loose garment. So I'm not holding it so tightly. I don't have there's a bit more ease, that I'm no longer afraid of what's chasing me and keeps me paddling. I can stop the paddling and maybe look behind me and say, what's there? What's underneath? When we calm the mind, which is what this practice offers us, a way to calm the mind, still the waters, we make space for what's really underneath to come up, and we make space for us to touch our wisdom, the wisdom that's there, the wisdom that's sometimes trapped in the body that we're really disconnected from, because we're taught to disconnect from that. But so much wisdom is here, and the Buddha understood that too. Reconnect with the physical experience. So I understand, I think, where you're coming from, but just have a little faith. Keep with the practice, and keep close to the community, the Sangha, and you'll get through to the other side and hopefully have an awakening. Yeah. It's not fun. The long, dark night of the soul is not just something somebody came up with because it sounds good. It's a journey. The path of purification. Purification is this burning, you know. I love in the Visuddhimagga, it talks about metta as the solvent that melts the toxins. So it's not a walk in the park. So it makes sense for you to feel that way. You're not alone, and you're not the first. So thank you for that question. Yeah. Over here.
Hi, I'm Melanie. I really appreciate your talk on this, and I feel like I was very blessed to have the messengers greet me in a experience with sickness and death with my sister and my best friend. And they kind of happened at the same time. My sister, and I was, again, blessed because I was with them through their path, going to the doctors and actually with them when they died. And my sister struggled to the very end. She was not going to die. She was going to work next week. And I saw the pain that went not only in her, but to everything around her, everyone, all the medical teams that dealt with her. She died pretty much alone and just suffering terribly. My best friend was just, she didn't want to die, but she accepted it. And she was nothing but love the whole way through it. Love for herself, love for everybody. She wore a pink boa when she had a colonoscopy. And they let her do it because she was so love-filled. And so she died with her house completely full of people. Everyone was just, it wasn't even really sad. It was an amazing lesson for me because now I can go from that and go, okay, how do I want to die? How do I want to be sick? And it's so powerful. It changed everything for me. So it's sort of like the lesson off the cushion there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've had those experiences too. And while you were talking, what came up for me was the idea of compassion. And compassion for ourselves and compassion for others. So as we reflect on these remembrances for ourselves and hold them more softly, we can hold others more softly too, which I think is really important. To have that reflection for all beings. You know, all beings, not just us, but all beings are going to go through this. So we let go of that critical voice, that judging voice. And perhaps have a little bit more compassion, yeah. So thank you. Yeah, the other side.
Thank you for sharing. That was really wonderful. I have a question. It might be a little different, but I've believed in Jesus for a long time, but how you explain the beingness is who I am. And so how does that marry? Does that marry together, or do you have to go one way or the other? Or is that too
Is it either or, you mean?
Right.
Do you have to renounce Jesus to walk in that door?
Right.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't have that experience. That's not my background. But I know people who do, and they have found a way. Because Buddha's not a deity. There's no belief. Really, the Buddha said, try this and see if don't believe it just because I say it, but do it for yourself and see if it relieves your suffering. So there are lineages or denominations of Buddhism where it's much more, a little bit more leaning towards that belief system. As anything, it gets codified and reified and dogmatized. But I really like the teachings of try this on, see if it works. So try it. Thich Nhat Hanh, I think, wrote a book about Jesus and Buddha. So you might want to check that out. I haven't read it, but it might offer something for you. Yeah.
Going back to the woman's comment about being pulled from her life source, or what I found is I'm being pulled from my culture, and that's really painful. And all the little habits throughout my day have had to shift. And I'm sort of kind of a bit in a trough at the moment. Like, you know, in the evenings, I would make dinner and then I'd watch television. I can hardly watch television anymore. So it's just so many ways that this culture functions. It's not that I'm choosing it, it's just the deeper I go into Buddhism, the more my culture doesn't make much sense, you know? And the whole emphasis on compassion. That's a really good road, compassion. And yet I don't see a whole lot of compassion right now. So it feels to me like a trough that I got to sort of go through and begin to find new ways to fill that space. I think a Sangha is probably not a bad way to do it.
Sangha's,
Thank you.
yeah, Sangha's a good way, and thank you for that. It reminded me of a book. There's a man named William Bridges, and he wrote a book like in 1980 called Transition, and he wrote it, and after his wife died in, I think, the early 90s, he wrote a second book called The Way of Transition. And it's not Buddhist at all. I seem to read all these books that are not Buddhist, but they are really the Buddhist teaching, the Buddhist philosophy. And he talks about that transition, that when something ends, we immediately want to get on to the next thing, figure it out, what's next. And he says, really, much of our time is in this place of groundlessness. Which is what the Buddha is teaching, you know, there is no ground that we can land on. It's always shifting, it's always changing. So that's a really good book, The Way of Transition. It was, I think I got 2 Dharma talks out of it, and it was like, oh my God, this is great. I'm gonna tell everybody. But that place of not knowing and being compassionate to yourself while you're in it is so important, because we all go through that. I mean, not just in an unpleasant way, but even in a positive, in a pleasant way, there's shifting and changing. You know, when good stuff happens, it's like the transition into that as well. So, thank you. They're late. Oh, you hear them? Okay. Here they come. Yes, I hear them. So am I supposed to do anything, or?
So let's make a circle.
Thank you.
And make room for the kids to make a circle.
Yeah.
Easy. Yeah, don't get burned. That's what. Yeah, have a seat. There you go. Can I hold your hand? Can we all hold a hand, or an elbow, or something? And take a few moments to make a wish for the people around you. What would you like? What happy thing would you like to see happen in the faces of the people all around you? And that goes for the whole big circle, too. What wish would you give to the person on your right? Maybe squeezing their hand a little bit and wishing them well. And then the person on your left, what good wish would you send that direction? And don't forget the person standing between these hands. We got a lot of fingers over there. That is quite a knot. That's very well put together. All right, now it's funny, yeah, to have so many fingers in one place. All right. Now, who is going to lead us in a chant? They're all together on that side? All right. We'll put the mic right in the middle, and then you can lean into it. 1, 2, 3.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much. That was very nice. And now the next step is to take a big breath and keep your. We've got a pretty good group here. We don't have long hair close to the flame. Relax, relax, relax. Now take another deep breath. And 1, 2, 3. Thank you. And join us in the other room for a snack. It's Potluck Sunday. Thank you very much.